All right. Rosh Chodesh Sameach. All right, shalom everyone. Welcome to our Rosh Chodesh service, our new moon service for the month of Iyar. All right, so if any of you are new, so what we're going to do is we have a brief service. When I say brief, I mean brief. It's only about 15 minutes, and then after that, we have something maybe not as brief, me talking. Okay, so so you get a little balance in there, I suppose. Okay, so this is something that I call screen-driven, meaning that we're going to have stuff on the screen that you're going to read along with me as we participate together as far as doing the readings and stuff. Like I said, it's not very long, so I think most of you should be able to stand for the whole thing for the most part. All right, and then we'll get to the part where we have my little encouragement of the week. So a lot of you think, Rabbi, can't you do something encouraging? I do this every month. Okay, the Rosh Chodesh is my time to give you encouragement. Okay, I do that also on Saturdays and Friday nights, but sometimes you miss it because it's buried inside of strength of encouragement. All right, but this is going to be, well, you might get a little bit of strength tonight too. I have some ideas of what I want to talk about. So anyway, all right, so if you'll all rise, we'll begin with the sounding of the silver trumpet. Amen. Amen. All right, we'll begin together with Psalm 51 and verse 15. Yahweh sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Yahweh, open my lips that my mouth declare your praise. May the expressions of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, Yahweh, my rock and my redeemer. Numbers 10:10. Also, in the day of your gladness and in your appointed times, in the beginnings of your months, you shall blow the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your Elohim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Kedushat Levinah, the sanctification of the new moon. O Yahweh, our Elohim, and Elohim of our fathers, make this coming month one of good and blessing. Grant us long life, a life of peace, of good, of blessing, of sustenance, of vigor. A life marked by a reverence for you and a dread of sin. A life free from shame and reproach. A life of prosperity and honor. A life in which love of the living Torah and the fear of Elohim animates us. A life in which our heartfelt desires are fulfilled for good. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Amen. He who performed miracles for our fathers and liberated them from slavery to freedom, may he quickly liberate us and gather our exiles from the four corners of the earth, and let us say, Amen. All right, the new moon of the month of Iyar is today. May it prove to be good and fruitful for all 12 tribes of Yisrael. Now, hold on a second. So just so we're clear, so as we get to this time of year, we're doing this at the end of day one of the month. In the wintertime, we do it on the beginning at night after sundown. So today is the end of day one. Okay, put the slide back up. Next one. May the set-apart one, blessed be he, grant this Rosh Chodesh to us and to all his people, for life and peace, for gladness and joy, for deliverance and consolation, and let us say, Amen. Blessed, praised, glorified, honored, and exalted be the name of the King of Kings, the set-apart one. Blessed be he, who is the first and the last, and beside him there is no Elohim. Extol him in the heavens. Yahweh is his name. Rejoice before his face. His name is honored beyond all blessing and praise. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever. Let the name of Yahweh be blessed forever and ever. This is from Isaiah 66, verses 22 and 23. These are our last verses. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make stand before me, let's start again. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make stand before me. Why is it on there twice? Okay, new earth that I make stand before me. That slide is messed up. Go to the next one. And it shall be that from Rosh Chodesh to Rosh Chodesh and from Shabbat to Shabbat, all flesh shall come to worship, and it shall be, see, these are somehow, somebody messed up these slides. All right, hold on. I'll just read it out of the book. Okay. Whoever made those slides is now fired. Okay. All right. What verses we were reading? Isaiah 66, 22 and 23. There we go. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make stand before me, declares Yahweh, so your seed and your name shall stand. And it shall be that from Rosh Chodesh to Rosh Chodesh and from Shabbat to Shabbat, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yahweh. Amen. Amen. All right, Rosh Chodesh Sameach. All right, have a seat. All right, let's see. So what do I want to talk about today? Well, let me get a sip of water first. All right, so first of all, and maybe, I don't know if you guys could pull up a couple of quick slides from the announcements. I just want to put up Friday night and Shabbat, just for new people and me, just a couple of quick slides. All right, so on Friday nights, just so you guys know out there, we do a Torah study every Friday night. Okay, it's at 7:30 Eastern. We do actually, for those who are here, have a meal first at 6 o'clock. But on the live stream, for you guys who are watching out there, we do our Torah portion study. So it's the weekly study of Genesis through Deuteronomy on a one-year basis. Okay, we're in Leviticus right now. And so we do that every Friday night. It does get altered a little bit during the feast where we have a schedule change, but generally it's every Friday. All right, then on Saturday, we have a Shabbat service. I said I'm going to make it abbreviated. You guys are going to have to find the slides as I'm jumping to them. All right, on Saturdays, we do have Shabbat services. It's at 1:15 Eastern time here. All right, that's when we start the stream. Actually, the stream starts at 1 with slides and some praise music and clips for some teachings and that kind of stuff. The chat is usually open at that point for people to start saying Shabbat Shalom. And then we go live with the sounding of the shofar at 1:15. The Friday night thing lasts about 3 hours, and the Saturday thing lasts about 4 hours, okay? Goes till about 5:30. So just to kind of give you guys a heads up, if you're not sure what we do on these things, they're all archived in our YouTube channel. You can also see them on our website, on our app, and those kind of things. And you can get a sense of what we do through that. All right, just wanted to throw that out there. And that's enough for that. This was a quick thing with the couple of things we do. Okay. And also, if you want to know a full sense of what we do, if you go to either a Friday night that we've recorded or a Saturday service, if you scroll through, you'll find the announcements part where you see slides like that, and that's where you need to watch on the YouTube, okay? Saturday, again, it's right before the teaching, pretty much, okay? So just if you get to the teaching part, just go back a little bit. So approximately 2 hours in, probably. Just give you a guess. All right. So what I want to talk about today is the Omer count. All right. Now, I chose this challenge for the Omer count. If anybody's watching doesn't know what that is. So the counting of the Omer is the counting from the wave sheaf during unleavened bread to 50 days out to Shavuot, okay? So as we're counting down to Shavuot, we're looking at, does anybody know what day it is today? Day 16, all right. So you have a plan for that I gave you guys on the website, on the app, etc. Now, I want you to understand that I did this for a reason. So we're covering 7 areas of life: spiritual, physical, financial, mental, emotional, relational, and community, right? And the reason we're doing all these things is because we're not just transforming. I think a lot of churches maybe miss the point here. It's not just a spiritual journey. Okay, it's a holistic journey. All of you is becoming Yeshua-like. So there's a spiritual aspect to all of that, but there's physical things connected as well. There's psycho-emotional things, psychological and emotional things connected with it. Relational things connected with that. Because hopefully we all understand that we're headed towards a kingdom that I refer to as the forever kingdom, the forever community, where we'll be living together, hopefully, right? We'll all be living together forever. Okay, and so we want to progress, evolve, develop, and transform into Yeshua-like in all these areas of our lives. I know that mental is part of it because we're told, let this mind be in you. That was in Yeshua. So, I'm not stretching this at all, right? Okay? And the reason I'm doing all this is because I want to give you the encouragement that you can do this. That's the encouragement, right? Every new moon, we look at this again, and I give you those encouraging words saying, if you're understanding the scripture now the way you do, and you see the things open, like he's opened that, popped your bubble, so to speak, well, then he's called you. And if he's called you, it's because you can. Not because you will, but because you can. So I don't want you doubting that you can. And so I want to now give you more of the tools. So my job is to make sure to equip. If we look at Ephesians 4:11, it says that those guys were there in verse 12 for the equipping. All right? So I can teach you the Torah, and that would be equipping, at least one aspect. But you got so many more aspects. You can figure out the Torah and still have a lot of problems with your relationships or your emotions or your mental health or your physical health or whatever, because you're not focusing on all the areas, okay? And he made you a complete, without Yeshua and with all these stuff, we were, I guess, incomplete. But he made you a complete human being, meaning you have all these areas functionally of being a human being. We are communal creatures. We are relational creatures. We have emotions. We have to think, okay? We have to take care of our bodies. We have to take care of our spirit, our connection vertically. And so living and functioning takes money. We got to deal with our finances. So these are all areas of life. So I gave you a challenge to focus on each of those 7 areas for 1 week, but not really. I want you to laser focus for 1 week, but keep it going beyond that 1 week. So over 4 weeks, 49 days leading to Shavuot, you'll have covered those 7 for 7 weeks. And so we've already covered week 1 was spiritual well-being. So hopefully you guys have done well with that. And when I open up the floor for questions and comments, I'd love to hear how you did with all of these. But certainly I want you to ask questions about the ones we're still coming up on. We started with spiritual well-being, then went on and dealt with our health, our physical well-being. And this week is what? Financial well-being. Okay, now for each week, day 1 was the checking the pulse. It was making an assessment of where are you now in that moment? Where am I in my whichever category we're talking about? Like now we're talking about finances. I'm assessing my financial health, my financial well-being. I use the word well-being in all these things. And I wanted to use the word well-being because it's not a measurement that I want you to measure with that's arbitrary in terms of I should have this much money or no, I want to know, are you financially well? Because somebody could be financially well at a very different amount than somebody else. I think financially well means that you're not stressing over your finances. That your finances are not causing you stress. There's no angst coming out of dealing with the finances, all right? And you can have that at all kinds of different income levels. Do you know that in some of the poorest countries in the world, people have no financial stress? They just learn to accept that that's what they've got, and they're happy enough with whatever they got. We end up stressing because of the way we handle all this stuff, or because we want more than maybe we should have, or we just don't handle what we do have and waste it on dumb things. See, people in those poor countries don't have any dumb things to waste their money on. So they don't get into that kind of trouble. We have endless amounts of dumb things, foolish things to spend our money on. Literally endless. Okay? All right, so day 1 was assessing in the 7-day week. Day 2 was creating or building yourself a plan, developing a daily plan to attack and address. It really doesn't have to be just a daily. Could have been some things you would do once a week or 2 or 3 times a week, something you would do once a month. Because maybe part of your wellness plan for your physical was to work out 3 times a week. Okay, so that's not an everyday thing, but it's 3 days a week. Okay, but you're making a plan. You're developing your plan in day 2. And the reason it's day 2 because you needed the information from day 1 to develop the plan, doing the assessing. And I'm going to get a little more laser focused on what we're dealing with this week to kind of show you what that looks like, because you already passed the other 2. And then day 3 through 7 was implementing the plan. Now, of course, with the separate caveat that on day 6, which was Shabbat, I know it's day 7 in most sequences, but since we started on a Monday and we finished on a Sunday, the weeks for the count of the Shavuot count, the 6th day of that count is on a Saturday. Be careful that you're only doing things on that day that are still Shabbat worthy. For example, with the spiritual well-being, almost anything you chose to do would be appropriate on Shabbat because it's spiritual things. When it came to the physical well-being, well, if you chose as one of your things maybe to eat better, well, certainly you could do that on Shabbat too. Okay, there are some things physically that maybe you decided I need to get more rest. Well, you certainly can do that on Shabbat, right? Now, maybe you decided to exercise. That's not Shabbat. Maybe you decided to, you understand what I'm saying? Some things would fit, some things wouldn't. Okay? Maybe with your financial plan this week, your plan was to put in an offering or start tithing or something. That certainly you could do on Shabbat. Okay? But we got to make it clear that you have to assess, I made a plan. Are all elements of this plan, I shouldn't say it that way. Are there any elements of this plan I can do on Shabbat? And the answer is probably some. You just got to look for them, right? Okay. So let's talk about, and by the way, I gave, for some of you that struggled with this, I did give you some suggestions on the 3rd page of things that, you could be looking at for these various things. So financial well-being. So I added a few things. You may want to make note of them, but I'm going to go over some of the things that were on the sheet, and I added a few. So the first thing with your financial well-being was to assess, right? We're supposed to have done that yesterday. So how do you assess your financial well-being? Well, first thing is to ask the question, do I have any financial issues? And the answer almost always is yes. Okay. But what are they? It's like going to the doctor and saying, I don't feel good. Okay, but you have no idea what is causing it. So that's why you go to a doctor, right? So the doctor is going to run tests. The doctor is going to ask you questions. That's what you got to do with all of these areas is you got to have to figure out how can I gather data so I can assess, right? All of you that were in the Level Up classes, you know this stuff. We went through this in the class, right? Now, so one of the best ways to get data about your finances, okay, most people, not everybody, most people use plastic. They don't use cash. That's actually an advantage to calculating where you are, which means there's documentation of everything you spend. I'm not saying it's the best way to handle money. I'm just saying since most of you use a debit card or a credit card for most things or a checkbook, there's a record, okay, of what you did. And so you can go and get information from your credit card statements or your bank statements to see where you've been spending money on, all right? And so the first thing I would have you do is go back at least, say, 3 months, because some things don't happen every month. So if you get a 3-month picture, you kind of get a better sense on average of what you're doing, okay? And get 3 months worth of statements. So you go back and get January, February, and March, because you should be able to have them by now. It's getting towards the end of April here, right? So you should be able to get those and look at what you did. And if one of the easiest things to do if you have at least some sort of savviness with a computer is get them all in Excel spreadsheet or CSV file, whatever type of things that you can import them. So you have a spreadsheet that has all of your purchases. And then take all 3 months, put them in one spreadsheet. Then sort them by what you spent, what the category of what you purchased. So look at each purchase and go, okay, that was household goods, that was food, that was gas, that was insurance. So categorize them so you know what you're spending. Because ultimately what you need to do is make a budget. Okay, make a budget. See, by the way, I love that we get to do this once a month. It's not usually on a Friday or Saturday because I can talk about these things that I can't do on a Shabbat. All right? You need to have a working, functioning, active budget. All right? Now, let me make sure I'm clear about that. you put this on a piece of paper 4 months ago and haven't looked at it, that doesn't count. Okay? I ask people sometimes, do you have a budget? Yeah, they've got a sheet somewhere that they wrote something on a while ago. That's not a budget. When is a budget made? At the end of every month for the next month. What does a budget do? It pre-spends the money you're going to spend next month. I've got $3,000 coming in. I need to allocate it to what it needs to go to so that all of it is allocated next month. That means I have to spend it. If I have extra, I can put it towards other things that I will talk about here in a little bit. But it has to be pre-allocated. You have to assign it to something. Every month. That's a budget. If you're doing that every month, I should be able to ask you, how much is your monthly expenses? Like, what is your total monthly outgo? You should have that number. You know why? Because you do it every month. You're familiar. You can't answer that number. I know you're not doing this. I don't mean down to the penny, but you should know, is it 3,000 or is it 5,000? I mean, you should be able to give me a rounded off kind of number that's close. But you don't know. Most of you do not know what you spend on food. Most of you have no idea what you spend on gas. Most of you have no idea what you spend on things like, stopping and getting a coffee or whatever. You just have no idea because you've never looked. I've sat with people, and they were like, when they went to do this, like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I was just buying a bunch of stuff that only cost $5 here, $5 there, but you did 200 of those in a month. So that's $1,000. Because you're doing 5 a day, and 3 a day, and 5 a day. Well, there's 30 days. That's lots of them, right? Even if you take the Shabbats out. I mean, you can really go broke spending $5 at a time. Depends on how many $5 things you buy. Okay? 20 of them is $100. So it gets there very quickly. And so I want you to understand, all of these areas take a lot of upfront work. You have to do the assessing, and maybe you take this as a picture and say, you know what? I'm going to break this down over a much longer period of time. I'm going to spend a whole week assessing an area of my life. Then I'll take a week planning and game planning it to come up with the plan. And then I'll start implementing. That's fine. Do the work. I crammed it into 1 week each. That may not be enough time. Certainly enough time to start, okay? But you got to do the work. I got a bunch of you out there still don't have budgets. You've been counseling with me, counseling with Elder, and because you will not do the work. Because it's not easy to deal with the messy sloppiness you have with your finances. Now, some of you are thinking, but I don't have all those things. I use cash. Fine. Starting this coming first of the month, which is coming up soon, right? On the first of the month, I want you to get out a ledger paper. It's just called a piece of paper that you write on. Nothing fancy, a little notebook. I don't care how you do it. And I want you to write May 1st, and then everything you spend, write on that paper. It's best if you also then have a spreadsheet you can go enter it in at night so that you could track things easier, okay? But write it down. You spending cash? Fine. Write down. I went to the gas station. I spent $15. Well, actually, you probably can't go to the gas station and spend $15. I spent $40. All right? I went to Starbucks. I spent $8. I mean, whatever you did, write it down. And then over the next 3 months, guess what? You'll have your 3 months assessment. One way or the other, you can do this. You know, one of the richest men ever was a guy named John D. Rockefeller. Rockefeller had, and they have them, had ledgers for every penny that ever came in or went out. As rich as he was, you would think that you get rich enough you wouldn't have to keep track of the stuff. Well, he was like the richest. In real dollars today, you know, he would give Elon a run for his money. Okay, this was a very wealthy man. And any penny he spent, he knew where it went. And he spent any penny he made, he knew where it came from. He tracked everything. You have to get in the habit of tracking what you're doing. Otherwise, how can you make financial decisions when you don't even know what's going on? You know? It'd be like trying to tell the doctor because you really have no idea what you ate. Like, what if you really just had no memory of what you ate? How could you tell them what's going on with your health? Well, what do you eat? Well, I don't know. How much do you eat? I don't know. Well, you may have a little bit more than that. Let's say you buy gas. You just don't know how much of it you buy. Well, do you ever eat, like, donuts? Yeah. Well, how many? I don't know. You go out and buy things like coffee every now and then? Yeah. How often? I don't know. How can you assess anything? So you can do it one of two ways. You can either go back and look at the historical record in statements, okay? I find that easy for me because I never spend cash, okay? So I just use the debit card or whatever, so I have a record of things. That's fine. Or keep track going forward for the next 3 months and see what you're doing. And then create a budget. So as you're developing, the first steps is to figure out what you've actually been doing. And the second thing is now decide, based on what you've been doing, what changes are necessary. Some things are probably too much being spent on. Some things maybe not enough, whatever. You need to make decisions, consciously controlling areas of your life like spending, okay? You shouldn't be walking into the store and just walking through aisles and then, oh, I think I'll get this. Oh, I think, and have no idea how much money you have to spend when you walk in there. You have a budget. I'm budgeting myself $500 this month for food. Fine. So when you go to the store, remember you have $500 that month. If you spend $250 of it the first week, then you got 3 more weeks for the $250 that's left. Now, of course, you may look at your budget month number 2 after you made one and realize I didn't allocate enough money for something. All right, so make adjustments. Maybe you allocated too much for something, so make adjustments. Because you got to figure out what the problem is in your finances, because almost everybody has a financial problem. And it comes down to 2 simple things, right? How much you make and how much you spend. That's it. Very simple. 2 things. How much you make and how much you spend. And if you are spending more than you're making, you have a problem. Now, you have 2 ways to fix it. I recommend a combination. Spend less, make more. And the reason I say a combination is because making more often equals spending more. And now you're in the same place, just at a higher income. I know a lot of broke people make 6 figures. Some of them make 7 figures. And they're still broke. Why? Because they just spend more. Spend less, make more will fix your problem. If you can't, some of you are on a fixed income, spend less. If you can't make more. I mean, you get to a point at some point in your life where you just can't make more. Fine. My big thing with all of this is to get you to see and do the most you can do in your situation. Right? Don't compare you to anybody else. Do and maximize you. I mean, so I don't want any wives looking at their husbands going, well, you know, that other couple over there, they've got this and they've got that, and we don't. Well, your husband makes what he makes, and you make your decisions, and don't compare yourself to anybody. Okay? You together decide what kind of lifestyle. To me, wealth is lifestyle. Wealth isn't an amount of money. Okay? If you can have a lifestyle you're very happy with at whatever level of income you're on, you're great. Even if that level of money isn't very high by other people's standards, but you're happy and you've got all the things you need and there's no financial stress, that's lifestyle. You can have that at $60,000 a year. You can have that at $30,000 a year. You can have that at $130,000 a year. Okay? But you could also be broke at all those levels and stressed and struggling. All right? So that's the one group I'd like to talk to. The other group I want to talk to is all of you that are not yet in the place where you can't make any more money, especially the younger ones, okay, the ones that are, say, 20 to 35 or 20 to I'll even go to 40, okay? I'll consider that younger ones. Now that I'm over 60, I can do that. You guys are running out of time, especially towards the 40s, and you guys who are at the 20s and 30s, you're wasting time. You have to be planning for 50, 60, 70, and 80. Look, didn't used to be that way. The boomers were like lucky to get to 70s. I mean, the average age, the mortality was like 72. Now it's higher, it's in the 80s, okay, something like that. So people didn't expect to live into their 80s. You have every reason to believe you'll get to your 90s. A lot of people do. So you got to plan for that eventuality. Well, I know, I'm just barely thinking about buying a car. Well, then you also got to be thinking about a career path that takes you to the lifestyle you're going to want at 40, 50, 60, and 70. Because if you think you can't wait for retirement, I'd be afraid of retirement if I didn't plan it. Okay? Because you're going to just be frustrated and unemployed. That's what retirement will look like. Broke and unemployed. That's not what retirement should look like. You worked hard. What's the phrase we always use? Working hard for a living, right? Well, where's the living going? If you're not spending right, you're not earning enough, there's no living. There's existing, there's struggling, there's frustration, there's anxiety. This is the week to focus on getting those things under control. All right? I don't have a problem, by the way, if you like to go and get Starbucks. I do too, occasionally. It's in my budget, though. Like, I have budgeted money to go and get something somewhat frivolous, like an ice cream somewhere or a coffee somewhere or something like that, just to go out and get dessert or whatever, but it's in the budget. Okay? It's not just an impulse item. If you know that you're going to have an impulse a couple of times a month to do something, make sure you have the money for it and put it in the budget. I usually call that entertainment. Because I don't go out and do a lot of things that are entertainment. So entertainment is I'll go out and eat at a restaurant. I'll go and get something for dessert or a snack somewhere with, whatever. I may go see a movie or something or go bowling, but that's all under my entertainment budget. Okay? You can do whatever you want, how you label things in your budget. You may want to put food and other things separately. Food, entertainment, we'll call it, I don't even know that word, like unnecessary food. No, that's too harsh. But just enjoyment in terms of food enjoyment. Because you want to go out there and eat, okay? Everybody does. That's fine. Budget it. Maybe you even want to go out to a nice steakhouse and get a nice steak. Good, budget it. If you budget it, no problem. You pre-spent the money, you knew you were going to go, and you allocated it, all right? So let's kind of think about these things. But the main thing I want to do is get you guys that are under 40 to recognize that you've got to start right now. And actually, if you're 40, you're already late, but not too late, okay? You've got to be aiming at where you want to be lifestyle-wise, 60, 70, 80. You have to do that now. Lifestyle. What do I mean lifestyle? Well, all you 20 to 30-year-olds who are not married yet, maybe you want to get married, maybe you want to have kids. That's going to cost more than what you're spending now as a single person. Okay? You think it was a big budget killer when you bought a car? Have a kid. They eat money worse than cars do. Okay? Get a spouse. It could be either one. There are a bunch of guys out there spend money like crazy, and a bunch of ladies do. Okay, you single, you're running around, and all of a sudden you get married. Now you really got some issues. Getting the budget right when you add more people to it only makes it that much tougher. I have given you a target, and I think it's too low now. But I was giving you as a minimal target that you should be aiming at least making your age per hour. So that when you're 50 and you're making 50 an hour, then that's $100,000 a year. Wife, kids, and everything, that should be workable. You understand what I'm saying? Now, it depends on where you live. In New York City, that won't work. Okay, so adjust for cost of living where you live. Maybe you need to make twice your age. And it might be, or 1.5 times, whatever it might be. Because your age per hour, double that, that's annual. Not exactly, but really close, okay? So just use that as your sort of template. So if you're in a job at 25 that's paying you 25 or 30 an hour, you're doing great. But if it doesn't actually continue to increase beyond that over the years, you're in a dead end. And that's where you guys will come to me all upset. You've been at this job for 15, 20 years, but it doesn't pay more than $30 an hour. And now you need to be making 40 or 50, and you can't because it doesn't do it. You need to know the path you're on. Will it get you there? Okay? I got a few of you that are young in here that are making double their age per hour or close to it. Good. But don't forget, that still might not be enough when you get to 50 or 60. You got to make sure your path takes you where you need to go. If you're not thinking ahead, you're going to not be where you need to be when you get there. You won't have I shouldn't say that. You'll be where you need to be. You won't have what you need to have when you get there. And I know elders sitting there amening everything because this is what we counsel, because people aren't doing this, okay? Look, taking the risk and taking a shot and doing things when you're younger and unencumbered with spouse or kids, much easier than trying to figure out how to do that married and 3 kids, okay? Much harder, because now you got all this responsibility and not a whole lot less freedom of time to go do multiple things and side hustles and develop a business or whatever you want to do. You can't do that so simply because you've got responsibilities now that don't allow for you to just so easily do all of that. Oh my gosh, when I was young, I started companies and I had all kinds of businesses. Just so many different things, and some of them failed. Some of them did pretty good for a while and then failed, whatever, but I tried things because I didn't have a whole lot to lose. Well, I shouldn't say that. It didn't take a whole lot to start over. You understand what I'm saying? The risk was so minimal. But you know what? I don't know that I would feel as comfortable taking some of those risks with a wife and a couple of kids, knowing that I got to still pay those bills. All right? Now, so you're going to make your budget. Okay, so you're going to look for ways to decrease spending, increase income. All right, plan for your future financial needs. We covered that. Okay, so your first, I can't even emphasize how important this is. Your first milestone you must have is a $1,000 emergency fund. Now, if you're in another country, it doesn't have to be $1,000 US. That may be a lot of money where you are. Okay? The amount necessary to fix a major appliance breaking or a major car problem, okay, here 1,000 would cover most of that, all right? Any kind of emergency big expense, all right? Your washer goes out, your washer or dryer goes out, your dishwasher goes out or whatever, your car has some major thing go wrong with the transmission or something, things that could cost as much as $1,000. That should cover most problems, all right? That way, when they happen, because they will, somebody's like, don't speak that. I'm not speaking it. I'm just speaking the truth. These things happen, okay? And then, you know what I don't want you to do? Please don't do this, because you come to me and you do this. You come to him and do this, especially elder. When your emergency comes and it costs you $800, you cry because you just finally got the 1,000. It's not there to look pretty. It's there for exactly what just happened, so that you don't freak out because you got to spend $800 fixing your car. You know? Now, I know you're a little disappointed that you finally got there, but be happy that you had it when it happened, because that would have thrown you into a whole tailspin financially if you didn't have the financial emergency fund there. So before you worry about your credit cards, the first thing you need to do is that emergency fund. You know why? Because if you don't have that and you're busy trying to pay off your credit cards and then you have the emergency, you're going to take it right back off the credit cards. That doesn't help. You're going to take it right back anyway. Do you ever hear of a guy named Murphy? All right, or it's really a law called Murphy's Law. Okay, so Murphy is, whatever can go wrong will go wrong type of thing. Murphy loves to live with broke people. He has a separate wing on your house in your apartment, okay? But you get that emergency fund, he's not as interested. Now, he might pop one out there the first time just to see how upsetting you get. But if you handle that well, for some reason, it just it's like bringing your umbrella, it doesn't rain. You know what I'm saying? Okay, Murphy shows up a lot more with broke people who can't handle it. I'm not saying there's an actual thing or this or that. I'm just saying it seems to those of us in the financial training world that that's the way it works. Okay? Elder's nodding his head. I mean, it just seems that way. All right? The more financially sound I've gotten, the less often Murphy showed up. Now, bear in mind, he might not have shown up less. I just had the money and it didn't matter as much. I didn't care as much, and I didn't pay as much attention. But he will drive you into whatever if you don't have money to fix these things that pop up. All right? You ever see those commercials? What is that, insurance company with the guy Mayhem? That's Murphy. Okay? Who's going to have something go wrong that you're not prepared for. Okay? And so you need to have this emergency fund as your priority. And as soon as you use it, your priority is to rebuild it. Okay? Your priority is not to protect it. If an emergency happens, use it. use it. Now, by the way, wanting to go out to eat at a fancy restaurant that you weren't planning for in your budget is not an emergency. Are we clear on these things? Like it has to be an emergency. Something almost always for an emergency, broke. Something broke, needs fixing, is an emergency, and it's expensive. It's not in your budget. So that's what you can take out of your emergency fund. Anything under $100 is not coming out of your emergency fund. You have that somewhere, okay? It's going to be something big. You ran over some stuff and you lost 2 tires at the same time. The tires are a couple $100 a piece when you put them on. That's expensive. You weren't ready for that. Your radiator went out on your car or something like that. It's expensive. You weren't ready for that, right? These are emergencies. They almost always include something breaking. Would you agree? Okay, something had to break. It's not like, oh, I forgot to put this in my budget and I really want it. No. Oh, this thing is really on sale. I've been waiting for it forever. No. That's not an emergency. It may be something we have to deal with, not this week, but the next week after, a couple weeks from now when we deal with emotional challenges. Okay? But I want it. You know what? We're not on that right now, but I'm going to jump there just for 1 second. You guys have to embrace the reality that you have a hard time with the simple word since you were born called no. You didn't like it when you were 2, and you don't like it any more now than you did then. And by the way, you throw just as big a fit sometimes when somebody tells you no. I would say at least a couple of handfuls of people over the years that have left because I told them no to something, okay? They didn't like that I told them no. It is what it is. But we have to get better at handling that. All right, back to our finances. So your next goal, all right, after that emergency fund, is to pay off all your debt, except your house. That's after you fix these other things, right? All loans of any sort other than your house, credit cards, anything that's debt, paid off. All right? The only thing you should owe money on is your house. Okay? I don't owe any money on anything except my house. Now, that's not that it was always that way. I've made all these mistakes. Elders we all made all these mistakes, and then we learned our lessons. Okay? But you need to pay off as your goal. You got your emergency fund sitting there. Okay, you're good now. Now we're going to pay off debt. Every penny that's not going into something dumb and everything, as we're saving up, we're cutting back on certain spending that was wasteful, we're trying to make more money, pay off the debt. Okay, this is where myself and Dave Ramsey goes different. Okay? He does a thing called the debt snowball, which means pay off your smallest card first, so you feel emotionally like I'm making progress. Okay, if you're going to do this, put your big boy, big girl panties on and do this right. I'm serious. Let's grow up. And the way to do this right is pay off the one with the highest interest rate that's causing the most bleeding. Okay? I mean, if you're going to do this like an adult, be an adult. Well, I mean, I know he recognizes that that's hard for most people, so he tries to make it where they're feeling like they're doing something. But still, if my smallest card is at 5 or 6% and my worst one's at almost 30%, I'm paying the 30% one off first. Okay? And they go high like that now. It used to be 23 was the highest it could go. Not anymore. They've changed those rules. Okay? So when you start paying off your debt, look at the interest rates. Pay the biggest one first. It's the one that's costing you the most money. If you pay that one off first, you have way more money to pay off the rest faster. Okay? Because that's the one killing you. That's what, and look, if I came to you, and you're like a medical center, right? I got Maureen as a nurse. If I showed up at the Iyar, okay, and I've got some scratches and other things and there's blood going out, you're going to look for what's bleeding the most, aren't you? Where's the most blood coming out of? Well, if I got a scratch on my arm that's hardly doing anything, it's just a trickle, that's not a big deal. If I'm gushing out of my leg, that's where you're going to go, right? And so stop the bleeding. I mean, this is a grown-up activity we're doing here, right? Dealing with money is a grown-up activity. So if you're going to be a grown-up, let's deal with the biggest bleeder first, the one that has the highest interest rate, okay? I mean, I get why he does that. And he's probably not wrong. Most people probably, because we're not adults, need little victories, okay? And he makes that argument. I'm just like, well, if you're doing this, then do it. Elder agrees with me, okay? And he teaches that himself the same way. If we're going to do this, let's do it. If we're playing at this, then really get your thumb out of your mouth and let's do this thing. All right? Now, the next thing you need to do is you need to, because the world is not stable, okay? You can lose a job anytime. Companies go out of business, things happen, things change, whatever. You need 3 to 6, preferably 6 months of expenses put aside. Not 6 months of income, 6 months of expenses. So if you know your budget says that your expenses are $3,200 a month, okay, then you're going to need $9,600 minimum so you can pay for 3 months of expenses. All right? Or you're going to need $19,200 for 6 months worth. See how I did that math real quick? All right? Okay, so you need to be able to know you can pay things off the normal life while you're in between if something goes wrong with your income. It buys you time. All right? It buys you time. And so let's make sure that we're actually putting that effort in. I've had a few people, that's the only thing that made all the difference in their life when they had a job problem. And they lived off of that money for a couple of months while they were getting a new job, and it was perfect. Aim for 3. Once you get to 3 months, keep pushing it to 6. Even better, push it to 12. Okay? This is going to be your safety net. This is your protection from anything going wrong. Your emergency fund first. By the way, your emergency fund is a completely separate idea from the income replacement expense paying 3 to 6 months thing. It's not a part of that, okay? Because why did I say that? Why do you think that is? Because the emergencies are not in your budget. The 3 to 6 months is covering your budget, okay? So don't take the 1,000 and include that in there as part of it. No, it's on top of it. So 90, right, we said, so 9,600 was 3 months, so you're really going to have a 10,600 put aside. You need that extra 1,000 emergency fund. Because remember, it's separate, it's budgeted for a separate thing. I don't have income, I can't pay my normal expenses is one thing, an emergency is a completely different thing. Keep getting something in my eye. Okay. All right? So hopefully this made some sense and help people, right? Help you a little bit? Okay. So if anybody wants to come up and ask questions about finances and other things like that. Oh, by the way, let me just, one last thing. Some of you, I'm not picking on you, are struggling with tithing and offerings. Well, they're not going to fix it like anything else in your budget without first identifying the problem and setting a goal to fix it, and then starting to figure out a way to make the money you need to so you can do these things. Wouldn't that be a big part of combining week 1, which is spiritual, with week 3, which is financial? Okay? All right, now you guys can come up.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I have one question that relates to emotional side, because I think there's always an emotional side to money, right?
All right, as long as it's still about money. I didn't get to mental or emotional.
It is about money.
Okay.
And then I have a question about what to do, like what are your thoughts between stocks and bonds and all that stuff, like a lot of the financial analysts or specialists they do, versus rental properties.
All right. So first of all, I just want to say that I will talk briefly about the mental and emotional, which will start next week and the week after. So I want to give you guys a little bit of an idea. But I don't want to interrupt the flow of this talk about finances just to go to that. But we will talk about it at the end for just a few minutes. Okay, now as far as what to do with your money, I'm not a financial advisor. I do things with my own money. Elder does things with his own money. And we can sort of give you some wisdom to some degree. Look, the stock market, as you have seen, if you've been paying attention, is a very challenging place to be. Now, a lot of people who are younger are like, oh, but it just goes up, 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 up. No, it doesn't. Go look at what it's done for the last 2 months. okay? It does not. Now, so I generally do not use it for my money. Now, I would consider, if I'm doing something long-term, to go ahead and pick up some very solid things that I think will not go out of business, because if the stock market goes down and your company doesn't go out of business, eventually it does tend to go back up. Eventually, that could be shorter or longer, but eventually it does go back up and get to where you originally started or better, especially if you got it when it was already lower, okay? And so that's a longer-term hold, okay? But then again, depending on how much it goes up, by the time you want to get rid of it, what's the value of the dollar at that point? And are you really making any money, all right? So to me, the better thing to do would be to get high dividend-paying stocks, which are giving you money on a quarterly or annual basis as a percent return, just like you would get out of a savings or some other type of account, but at a higher rate, because there are stocks that do give dividends as part of being a part owner of the company, and it's whatever set percent they decide they're going to give. Of course, it's not guaranteed that they'll always give it, although they do have companies that have a track record of like 40, 50 years of whatever of giving dividends that they're likely probably to continue. You know, my grandfather was big on that. He owned a lot of stocks that were all dividend stocks. And part of his retirement income was that he got this dividend all the time, okay? And that came in from owning this stock, all right? So as far as rentals and real estate's very challenging too. I love the idea of owning it, okay, as a investment. But realize if you're owning something with one door, if it's empty, it's expensive on you. But it's very expensive and challenging to own something with lots of doors. In other words, like a building with 16 units or 32 units or something like that, those are really expensive and have other challenges. But if you own a duplex, triplex, that's only 2 or 3 doors, you have 1 or 2 of those things empty, you're not making money, all right? And you're not even paying your rent and everything else on it. So you need to just be aware that real estate can have its issues as far as that part of it, if you're doing it as rental. There is the benefit of depreciation, which does give you a certain amount to offset income that you have from other places. So people that make a decent amount of money, if they have enough real estate, it offsets a lot of that income. And then you don't end up having to pay tax on that income that gets offset, all right? And so it's about 27 and a half years is the value that they put on a house as far as depreciation. So if you own a building, say for $275,000, then you're going to be taking $10,000 off a year for 27 and a half years against your income. I just used an easy math number for you there, right? Okay? So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. But again, it is risky, it is challenging, but I think it's the best place to be in the longer term is to own property, right? To own property. Okay, but you got to be careful. You don't just jump in at the high of the market when everybody's just jumping in and then next thing you know, the thing goes crashing down. Because, and by the way, every place that's crashed has gone right back up over 10 years later, whatever. Like all the real estate in Florida went right down, went right back up. But you know what? People went broke and had to sell when it went down because they had stuck with empty houses that weren't rented. Man, when I lived in Florida, every place there was being built up with rentals. Houses that were for rent, apartment complexes, whatever. They were all rentals. And it was a glut of that stuff. And they went broke with them. They had to sell them at fire sales because they couldn't get people in them. Okay? There's risk in all investment. So let me just say this for all of you that want to invest someday. Just remember these words. It must be risk capital. Let me define that for you. Risk capital is money that if you lost it, it wouldn't affect the other things we just talked about. It wouldn't affect your budget. It wouldn't affect your 3 to 6 months. It wouldn't affect your emergency fund, okay? It has to be money you budgeted as putting at risk to possibly make money with, knowing that you might lose all of it. It can't ruin everything, okay? I had a guy that was a client when I was in the commodities business, and he made some bad trades, and he lost all his money. And he wasn't a lot of money, but he was crying to me on the phone. I said, what's the matter? I mean, it's risk capital. You made a few bad decisions. You lost some money. And it wasn't a whole lot. It was maybe $22,000. Now, some of you think that's a lot, but not when it comes to investing, okay? And he said, that was my whole retirement. I was like, that was going to buy you what, 3 months? I mean, what was $22,000 going to do for you? Like he was crying like that was his retirement. What, you were planning to retire for 5 months? That was your retirement? What are you going to do with $20,000? Okay? People on average are running, somewhere in the 4,000 to 5,000 a month range when they get to that age and everything with whatever they were, 3 to 4. I mean, how many months are you getting out of that? 6, 8? I mean, if you're really frugal. So I said to him, I said, sir, you don't understand what you're doing. This is risk capital. That's what we told you when you signed the disclosures, that this has to be risk capital, right? That you can and possibly will lose all your money. That's what gambling like commodities is. A lot of people lose all their money that they put in it. So you need to know if you're going to do these things, you're doing it with risk capital. Money that if you lost it, you wouldn't be happy. Nobody likes losing money. But it won't hurt everything else you're doing, okay? And that's a hard concept. That means you have to actually make more than you need, put aside a bunch of it that you're willing to put at risk, okay? Now, you talk to most of these stock guys out there, they'll tell you the same thing works with all investments. You should have a certain amount of money to put into something that you feel is an aggressive way to make some money. It's a higher risk. Some things that are in different levels all the way down to the most conservative that don't pay very much but are very low risk. Like you could put your money in a savings account and get 4% or whatever you can get. Very low risk and doesn't pay very much. There are other things you could put money in that are much higher risk and maybe could possibly make you 10 or 12%. So you got to decide how much, that's called diversification, how much you want to put at risk in different ways, okay, in your portfolio. All right? Okay, go ahead. Did that answer the question?
It does. And what you just said at the end, that'll help reduce the risk, right, for overall kind of loss if you put all your money in one place. But if you diversify it, obviously that some will do well and the others may not. But Rabbi, so it's not, I don't know, maybe it is an emotional question. You tell me if you can answer it or not. But with money use, okay, you may have people close to you, right, that want something and they want to spend a little bit more. I mean, some people, everybody's different, right? So the budget, whenever we have done it, I have to admit that we're working on the one from next month. It's almost like, to me, it has given us the boundaries, because now we know. And so if something comes up and, okay, maybe I can just think about it for 24 hours if I still want it. If I still really want it, is it necessary, then we shouldn't be making exceptions, but if not, we'll put it on the next month. How do you balance, my question is really, I guess the budget will answer that question, balancing when people, like family, whatever, want to spend more than what you have budgeted.
All right. So first of all, nobody gets a say in the budget who's not a part of the core. In other words, only a husband and a wife have a say. Children have no say, okay? Children get no say on your budget. They can have all the say they want on their own budget when they start working, but they don't get any say on your budget. Now, it could be that the husband or the wife is the only one making money or making more money, whatever. You guys have to decide how to come to agreement on how the money is spent together, all right? It doesn't matter who makes more. What matters is that you both agree on how the money is going to be spent based on the goal of what you want the money to be used for and do eventually, okay? It's not about, who gets to decide it's my money, I want to do it. No, what do we together want to be where do we want to be financially in the next 5 or 10 or 20 years? And let's make sure the things we're doing now are in that direction, okay? So if you don't agree, that's part of the budget meeting. Budget meetings can be fun, okay, as I've been told, okay? I've not had problems with them, but they can be problematic, okay? We've counseled some people like, well, my wife or my husband doesn't. Well, okay, this is part of why you got to, this shows you got a marriage challenge. Not a bad marriage, it's just an area of challenge in your marriage. You guys aren't agreeing on something that's a core basic thing like finances, but you got to. Or you can't function. One can't just be spending whatever they want, and the other one's trying to be frugal and make sure everything works. You both got to be on the same page. Okay? Now, the other thing, okay, when it comes to, and this I want to be very careful with, if you have the emergency fund, 6 months expenses, all the core things, you paid your debt, Then you might take some extra money that was planned for something and you want to move it to something else, but just make sure you're making it up. It's just like when I talk about doing the same thing with time blocking. You blocked out time for A, but you want to do something that pops up that you think you might want to do more for B. Don't lose that A still needs to get done. So you need to then take that out of the next budget or take it out of somewhere so that your equation has to still be a balance on both sides. It's a net zero, okay? I spent more here, but I took it back out of here. But you do not, this is key, do anything emotionally, whatever, till you have the basics covered. No, you cannot go and have that luxury thing or other thing that you want to do when you haven't gotten your emergency fund, your debt paid, and your 6 months' expenses. No. You can't afford the risk. To just say, oh, this so-and-so's in concert coming and it's only $200 a ticket. No. Okay? You can't go and do these things without everything else covered. It's just dumb. Okay? Cover everything first and go out and do whatever you want within your budget that you budget for that. Budget to go out and spend $200 a month on entertainment. Enjoy yourself. You know, you lived in New York, you want to go to like a Broadway or off-Broadway thing once a month and put it in your budget. You know what I'm saying? Or if you want to come, you could drive down to Atlanta. The nice theaters they got in Atlanta, go do it, you know? We even have okay shows here sometimes. Sometimes. But the thing is, it's got to be in your budget, okay? But if you're talking about, but this is like a look, I'm sorry, have discipline. Am I right? Would you agree? Not until those things are done, right? Okay? That should be your urgency. I need my 1,000, 3 to 6 months, and pay off all my debt. Nothing else, tunnel vision. Nothing else to distract me till I've got that. All right? Otherwise, you'll never get there. You'll always find something to pop up, especially once you've given yourself permission to do it once. Because if your budget is working and all your debt's paid and you got your 6 months and you got your emergency fund, yeah, you might have some discretionary money where you can say, I'll spend a little bit less on this time and I'll spend it on something else. That's fine. Because everything else is already in order. All right? Okay. All right, Grayson. No, you're holding the mic. Okay, Shannon.
Okay, my question is centered around savings. I understand the emergency fund, and this is where I tend to always overthink when I try to plan this. When it comes to medical and dental related matters, should I or should I not rely fully on my emergency fund for those things, or should I have a separate savings thing for medical and dental things, such as, well, not just emergencies, but if, let's say, I know I have a surgery that I need to have, like, do I save it separately from that, or this is where
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. This is kind of breaking down that budget a little bit more. Anything that you know is going to come up at some point. Let's say you know that you're going to need to change your oil. You don't do that every week. You don't do that every month. Okay? But it is something you're going to do at least a couple times a year. All right. So that should be somewhere in your budget. You put money aside for that. Okay? You also know that, for example, at some point you're going to need tires. You're going to need brakes. I'm just dealing with your car right now. All right? You should have that already budgeted. You're not using your emergency fund for things you didn't budget that you should have budgeted. Let's say you also pay your auto insurance once a year, once a month, once a quarter, whatever it is. If it's once a month, it's in your budget. What if it's not once a month? What if it's every 6 months or a year that you normally pay? Well, you better budget for it. Otherwise, it's going to mess your budget up the day it shows up, and that's going to be an extra whatever, couple $100 that you weren't planning for. Put aside that money every month. Take your annual and every 6 months and quarterly stuff and break it up into a monthly amount to put aside that you don't spend, that you're accumulating. So when it comes to now the other side of it, medical and dental, if you know you need to go get checked up, you know you got to get your teeth cleaned or whatever it is, or you know you have a surgery or something else, you start putting away for these things. That should be in your budget. Your emergency fund, I know it's like I'm talking through thick jelly or something. Like, it's hard for you guys to get this. It's for an emergency. If you knew it was coming, it's not an emergency. An emergency is something that happens that you had no idea was going to happen when it happened. Okay? You go to do your laundry, and you turn on the machine, and it's broken. It'd been working fine, and all of a sudden it's broken. That's an emergency. Okay? Now, I think you should probably budget for the fact that someday you might need a new machine, and I wouldn't make that your urgency because it's going to last for a while without a problem. Okay? Same thing with your car. If you bought a used car, that used car is not going to last forever. Buy a new car, it's not going to last forever either, but it might last a little longer because it's already new. It doesn't have all the miles on it. But you got to be planning to get a new one. It's got to be planned for because it's something you can see coming, right? It's not going to surprise you. Emergencies are surprise. This thing just showed up to wreck your budget, okay? So things that you should have seen coming and knew were coming need to be in your budget, okay? You know that you need to get these things, do these things, whatever it is, you should have it in your budget, all right? Okay, Shira.
This is great, Rabbi. Two things. One, as you know, several years back, I was privileged to take the original course that you hosted and that Dave Ramsey, we had it on video in there.
Right.
And so
we did the FPU, the Financial Peace University.
Financial Peace University, yeah, and that was really good. I mean, and your comments, Elder Billy's comments, everything. I mean, we were really well taken care of. And what I did at that time, which I've never regretted, I signed up for a subscription to Dave Ramsey's Every Dollar app.
Great app.
It is fantastic. And I can take, $13 a month, but well worth it. And I can go, I don't budget month to month. I budget 6 months to a year in that app. Okay, so say I've subscribed to a certain supplement. I get a big discount, if I buy 3 months worth at once. And so I count 3 months and I put that in. That's going to hit it's going to be an EFT.
So you already know that, let's say it's $50 or whatever it is.
Right.
It's not what's in your every month budget, but you already put it 3 months from now to show up in that month.
Right, exactly.
It's already in that budget.
So I'm going to
Brilliant.
need, I'm going to need glasses like the medical thing.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that Shannon brought that up. But, the money's there for the glasses, for the, eye exam and whatever it is. And I put that in, because I know there's a certain amount coming in May or June, and that's going to be allocated for my, it's going to be extra coming in, and it's allocated for my glasses. Otherwise, I might have to go another year without
There you
new
go.
glasses.
All right, let me just take that to give another aspect of what I already said, right? For some people, you don't have the flexibility in your budget for all of a sudden $100 this month, and then I don't have it for 6 months. It's easier to save $20 a month and then have the $60 in 3 months. Some people can allocate, because there's things that you can move around your budget, to say, I can handle this $60 in that month. So you have two choices. Know that it's coming. Look, whenever I do my budget, I have a 1-year budget screen. I have a spreadsheet that goes out 12 months. And if I know something's coming out 3 months from now, I already have it in that budget. If I can afford not to have it come out every month and remember to hold it off to the side. But I know the insurance has to be paid this month. Or I know that I'm going to the dental thing, whatever. If I know something in advance, it goes in the budget. Because mine is a 12, and actually the ones that I gave out with the Money Mastery is a 12-month budget sheet. Okay, so you can see the whole year in front of you. So yes, that is another way to do it if you have enough. Now, some of you are so tight in your budget, you can't do that. So start blocking out a small amount every month so you have what you need 3 months from now. Okay?
Yeah,
Either way.
It's great. The other thing I just wanted to mention, in case it might help somebody else, when I got to the point where I was ready to start paying off my credit card debts, and I had another loan that was a little bit less interest on it, which was my smaller loan, and then I had a bigger one that was my credit card debt. And it just occurred to me, what if I just go to my bank and tell them my goal and just talk to them and say, look, I'm trying to pay off everything I owe you as fast as I can. What can you do for me? And they actually sat down and they consolidated the loans
At a lower rate.
and at a lower rate.
Beautiful.
It was fabulous. So, I mean, if you're really up a tree about your loans, talk to your banker.
All right, let me throw another little caveat out there. If your smallest one is just small enough that you could just pay it off, just pay it off. Okay? I don't mean, like if you got one that's like $500 or less and you're working, and it's really not your highest interest rate, and you've got another one that's say $1,500 or $2,000 is a much bigger one, pay the small one off. It's just a quick thing. It's done. You won't have to be distracted by it anymore, whatever. But if you got similar balances or something that you just can't pay off in one shot, pay the bigger one off. Okay? Because some of you will tell me, well, I've got 3 credit cards and one of them has less than $200 on it. So, well, good, just pay that off. Get it out of the way. All right? But if it's something you can't just pay off in one shot, go for the bigger one. Okay? Go for the big one. The little one isn't even costing you very much a month. It's almost nothing on it, and they're charging you a less rate. So it's not hurting you any. But if it's really small enough, it's just one less thing to deal with. Get rid of it. Pay it off and be done with it. All right, go ahead.
Well, it just, it was like because I had a littler one and then a bigger one, but to consolidate them and get a lower interest
Sure.
rate was fabulous. I mean, that really helped.
Absolutely.
So I got it done in 2 years, and it was a great feeling.
All right, awesome. Ashley. So there's another hint for all of you that you can, especially if you have a bank loan with other stuff, ask them if they can, well, I've already got a loan with you. Can we do something to consolidate this? As opposed to just saying, I've got all these credit cards and going to the bank and saying, can we work this from scratch? She already had a loan with them. That really helped and made it easier. All right, Ashley.
Hag Sameach, Rabbi.
Chag,
I have
really a
two
Chag,
questions.
it's a Rosh Chodesh Sameach, but yes.
I thought okay. I'm tired. Sorry, I've been up since 5 o'clock in the garden. I have 2 questions. One,
Okay, the Chagim really are the 3 in Deuteronomy 16:16.
Mhm.
Okay, Chag Hamatzot, Chag Hashavuot, and Chag Hasukot. Okay,
I am tired. Yes, sir.
but all of them are Moedim, and then there's of course these Rosh Chodeshes, which are just acknowledging the new moon. All right.
My apologies. I have 2
Why are you
questions.
apologizing? You didn't understand something that you
It's true. I am a cash budgeter. I've been wanting to. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I wanted to try to switch digitally, or what you guys call the credit or debit cards, and I'm having such a trouble with that. Maybe it's because I'm such a deep kinetic learner that I have to have the cash to be able to separate in my head. But is there a step to where, because my husband wants to go to the spreadsheets, and I'm very I don't get, not fearful, but I don't get hesitant, but this makes me hesitant
Of what?
because in my cash budgeting, I have literally every dollar you can put into a different
It's
envelope.
envelopes and that. So use the envelopes.
So I can
Okay.
see it split, but if I
Okay.
see it in the bank account, I'm like, okay, there's $1,500 in there. I'm like, but I can't just rack off in the top of my head going, okay, I only have this much for food
All right,
left and
here
this
we go.
much
Here we
left.
go. Here we go. All right. So if you know what your budget layout is for each of your things, okay, you can have it written down, food, you can have it written down just like the envelopes are. And then I want you to treat cash like you would a checking account. Have a little notebook, like you know when you write your check, you have your little record thing that you go, okay, I had $1,500 in the bank and I just spent $100, so now I got $1,400. And you actually write it in there and you subtract and you have your new balance. Do that with your cash, okay? And if you want to do it by all of those categories, have categories on the paper. Says, this says food, I've allocated $500. I just went to shopping, I spent $100, and I got $400. Okay? Even though you're doing it digitally, using plastic for it. And by the way, I am not a fan of debit cards. Use a credit card. Why? Because a debit card, if it's stolen, gives people access to your bank account. Okay? Credit card does not. Okay? So, and they are protected with, I don't know, usually up to $50 is the most you'll have to pay, lose on a deal if somebody steals and starts spending it. So, yeah, now I'm not a big debit card guy, okay, where they've, that could give them, now, of course, you don't ever have anything in the bank. It's not a risk, but, okay, but still, all right? But people say, but there's no interest on the debit card. Yeah, and you can only spend if you got cash. Well, you got to learn how to use plastic and not pay. You got to pay it off every month. All right? Okay, I spend everything on my American Express, and I pay it every single month. Right? All right, go ahead.
So okay, and then my second question was, Mike and I are obviously, with him being my husband, he gets to say so, but I'm wondering, when I do my cash budgeting, is it okay to have subcategories for categories? As in,
You can do it any way you want. Pre-spend the money any way that works for you.
okay,
I mean, there's one rule. All money must be allocated. I don't care how you do it. Whatever works for you.
okay,
Look, a lot of people, especially if you're older, my parents did this when they first learned to budget. They had the envelope system. Of course, then the next thing you know, someone breaks in your house, and that didn't go very well. But the envelope system was that you had an envelope that said food, one that said, this and that, all the different categories, and it had cash in it. So that's how you knew how much you could spend that month. And when the envelope was empty, that was it. Okay? That's the envelope system. All right, go ahead.
and my last question is, and I understand this is probably a stupid question, but what is the appropriate amount of categories one should have?
As many as you need.
Yes, thank you.
Look, I like to break out certain things for me, and other things I'm happy to put them all in the same, I can put this as a catch-all, okay? So, it's just everybody has their own thing, okay? You can break out and be as detailed as you want. I mean, you can go crazy and make it, it's just, as long as you can, here's the main thing. Does it work? Okay, remember, I'm going to be very red for right now. Does it work? That's all that I care about as a red. Does it work? I don't care how you do it. Did it work? Does it allow you to know where your money's going, plan in advance, have control over your finances and your expenses and your money? Then I don't care how you do it. If you could do it any other way than what I just laid out today, that's great. But most people do nothing. Okay, well, they spend, but they have no idea what they're spending, have no way to track it, have no way to plan in advance or whatever, and they end up just struggling all the time. Okay, one of the first couples I did counseling with, here at Beth Shalom, I sat down with them. They had no idea how upside down they were every month. They looked at me like, I was like, how do you not know you're that far behind every month? Well, we just keep borrowing it off the credit card. But they had no idea, And the reason they had no idea is very simple. They never looked. I mean, if you don't look, how are you going to know? I mean, they knew they were short because they knew they were always borrowing, but they had no sense of just how bad it was. Okay? You have to know where your money's going. Okay? Just like a lot of you have your health problems because you don't pay any attention to what you eat and drink. You just eat and drink. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, and without thinking very much about what you're putting in your body. You just don't think. And so you just do. And the next thing you know, things go bad. Okay? When you just do and react and respond instead of consciously making decisions and choices, it doesn't usually work well. Okay? John, live stream.
All right, from Alejandro C. I've been looking for a job and applied and can't seem to find one. I'm looking for overnight and no one has called me for an interview. I have kids, so that is what works for us. What do you suggest, since you said we should do the work and then things will work out, but I'm doing it and it has been like 2 months?
You're going to probably need to call us so I can have much more specific details than I can give you over here. All right? One thing I will say, if you're applying this goes to everybody. If you're applying today, like 2025, anywhere, they're almost always going to make you do it online, and you almost always are going to hear nothing back unless you contact them. You must follow up. Okay? So what I would do, I would go online and fill out my thing. Actually, what I really would do, especially if it was something like the lower end jobs, like at a fast food place or something else, I'd go in there first, meet the person, have them like me. Then they'll say, yeah, go ahead online and apply. And then I will come back the next day and say, I applied yesterday, just want to make sure you got it. Or, hey, can I follow up with you in a day or two just to make sure you got it? Because I know online can get a little squirrely. Because you got to remember, their metrics, AI or whatever, is going through all these online applications. You're just noise. You're part of all that noise of people that are applying. But if you see them face to face, you're now a person. You're not just digital noise. Okay? So you have to follow up. Almost everybody we've ever told to go in has gotten the job. Now, they weren't able to apply when they went in. A lot of places still make you go online and do it. But then if the person likes you, they'll go look for your application because they met you. That's the way I would handle it. So if you're having trouble, you may be having trouble because you're not talking to somebody, okay? Making sure that you're, and say, look, I'm not just saying, I just want to make sure I got a job. I say, look, I just want to make sure you got my application. I'm really excited about working here. That sounds like somebody who's very interested in working there and has got a good amount of enthusiasm and initiative, right? That you're willing to come and check and make sure. So that's just the new thing to do. In some ways it's really good. In some ways it's back in my day, we had to go in and physically handwrite on their paperwork, even if you had a printed resume, which they wanted you to have also, and then asked you all the same stuff and made you write it by hand on their form. You couldn't just write, see resume. I'm like, that's why I made a resume. Because the people I was working with were still dealing with from the 1940s or something. I don't know. So it just, people weren't just printing up resumes back then, I guess. I don't know. All right? So online, you fill out their form, but you're filling out with the thousands of everybody else. What's going to make you stand out? Show up. And be likable. And look like you're competent enough. And they might say, you know what? I really would love to hire you. What was your name again? Okay, write that down. I said, okay. Then say this. Hey, I'm going to go online. I know sometimes the online stuff can get a little whatever. Would it be okay if I checked in with you like in 2 days just to make sure you got my app? That's a professional way to address them. Okay? Always, I'm a sales guy. Always ask for the next appointment. Hey, would it be okay if I check back with you just to make sure that you got the app or whatever, right? That way, they're not thinking you're bugging them. They already agreed for you to do it. What were they going to say? No? It's a very logical thing. They'll be, of course, yeah, give me a call in 2 days or stop by in 2 days. Say, hey, would it be okay if I just stop by tomorrow or the next, when are you going to be here next just to make sure they got the app? Because I'm really excited to work here. And the person's already told you there's a job, right? Did this with my son, the first job he got. We're sitting at Taco Bell. I called over the manager. I introduced him to my son. The guy said he wanted to hire him. He went home and filled out the application. I said, look, and then the next time that manager's on, I said, could it be okay if we check in? And he did. Because he didn't hear back from him right away. I said, go in and see that guy again. I said, hey, by the way, I sent that app in. Put him on job right away. Look for his app. You know? I'm just telling you right now, that's the biggest problem is people are not following up. You guys are so used to being, this is your interface. No, this is your interface. This is a tool. Okay? They're not hiring your phone. Your phone isn't going to go ahead and flip burgers or make fries or whatever. You got to go in there. Okay? And be enthusiastic and likable. Especially if at the bottom end stuff, nobody wants those jobs. You go in there looking like you're really interested and want the job, they're going to hire you. And they'll look for your resume. You know? All right, next.
And this is the last one, Rabbi, from Anna Kaufman. What advice do you have for stay-at-home moms when it comes to finances? Should we be focusing on career pursuits even when we are raising littles and maintaining a household?
It really just depends on your financial needs there. And by the way, Anna, I do use the wedding gift you gave me. I did her wedding, and she gave me a little Yeti mug. It says Rabbi on it. I use that every day, so just letting you know. I appreciate it. It's great. Anna, the thing is this. Your husband, all right, so Jonathan can call me if he wants some help, but anyway, he is primarily responsible, especially when you got littles and you need to be there taking care of the house. What you can be helpful with is the budget. Maybe you're the one that helps track some of those things when he's busy working and kind of entering things into the sheet. You're also responsible for a lot of the spending that goes on, and you could be consciously, or conscientiously handling the finances as far as making sure your spending is right and that kind of thing. As far as being stay-at-home, there are some things that can be done from home. You just got to be careful that there's a lot of scammy stuff out there. But there are some jobs out there that you can get from home and that you can do when the littles are asleep or when the littles are under control or whatever. But really, I would like you to take care of those babies of yours, all right? And hopefully Jonathan can handle what he needs to, and he can call me for counsel with that, okay? Next. By the way, let me just say this for everybody, because that was the last one, right? Okay. So let me just say this. All of you men, your goal, I'm not picking on you, I'm not scolding you, I'm not shaming you, okay? Your goal should be that that never happens. Your wife shouldn't have to think about that. She should be able to take care of the littles, take care of the house if that's what she wants to do. I'm not saying, ladies, you can't get a career and everything else. I'm saying if she wants to be home with the littles, okay, because she's got little ones, all right? She should be able to do that. All you men out there, you want to get married someday? If you're not married, you should be aiming for your budget so your wife doesn't have to. She can if she wants, but doesn't have to work. So she can do the things that, of course, if she's not going to have littles, she should be working to be productive just so she's not sitting around bored doing nothing. Not that you necessarily need it in the budget, okay? I told my wife I'd love it to be at a point where if she's working, that she can do whatever she wants with her money. I don't need it to pay the bills. I don't need it for anything in the budget. I want to be the one that takes care of all of the budget, okay? That should be your goal, men. Now, I know that not everybody's there right this second. That's just the goal, okay? We got mostly two-income families to make it these days. I think the goal shouldn't be that you can have two incomes and only need one. Enjoy the other one. Put that towards the retirement. Put that towards the other thing. We didn't even get that far in the financial discussion about retirement and legacy. We were just talking about you surviving, okay? But there's more levels to this. If you took the level up class, there's more levels to this beyond just getting your budget working, okay? And so, just keep that in mind. But, when I would love it for the ladies to have the freedom of choice, okay, to work or not work. I would prefer, for me anyway, that my wife is home with the littles when they're little. Who's better to be home with the littles? Do I want to farm them off to somebody else to watch my littles? Okay? So that's probably part of the problem with people today is that they don't have their parents raising them. Of course, some of them, the problem is they do have their parents raising them. Shame on all you parents that fit into that category. Okay? So hopefully that was helpful. Now, I did want to cover a couple of things real quick. I told you I would on what's coming up. All right, so we've got, after this week's financial well-being, we have mental health well-being, and emotional well-being, then relational and community. All right? Let's work our way backwards because it'll be a little bit easier. So for community, I already wrote this on the sheets that you guys have. Participation and volunteering. Okay, community, I'm talking about the body first, and then your local community outside the body. Observe, learn, adjust fits into all relational things, including community. Observe what's going on. Learn what the rhythm is of the community and what's needed and where you fit in, and then adjust to it and try to find that sort of rhythm and jump in and do what you need to do to be a part of it. See where you fit, okay? Stop judging and feeling judged, and stop gossiping and Lashon Hara. Stop talking about everybody. Well, you guys talk about each other way too much, all right? Relational. Observe, learn, adjust is the secret to the whole thing. You guys are not paying good enough attention in your relationships, even friends. Okay, you take things for granted, you're not paying attention, and then the other person gets mad or you get mad because they do something that clearly shows they haven't been paying attention. Okay? To things that clearly you like or don't like or irritate you or whatever. They're just not paying attention. Pay attention. And then learn from it. And then adjust. Most of the marriage problems I deal with people, they are not doing this. Okay? Then we get to emotional and mental well-being. So these things are the biggest problem. It's keeping all our psychologists and therapists and psychiatrists well employed. For the mental health and the emotional health, I want you to develop, for mental, I want you to develop strength. You're going to have to strengthen your mind. You got to strengthen that part of you that is logical and rational so that it can handle the stronger by nature emotional side of you, okay? You have to develop strength in your logic, reason, and that will bring, and you have to have stability in that. You can't just be logical and reasonable sometimes. You got to really strengthen that. And then come up with ideas, And I'll talk more about that in a second. And then same thing with emotional. You want to develop balance. You don't need to develop any strength. You've already got lots of strength there. But you're lacking balance. Okay? In other words, you're letting it just run to whatever level it wants to run. I'm not saying don't be emotional. I'm saying have some control levers on that emotion, restrictor plates, okay, so that it can't just run anywhere it wants to. And, you know, I've had people come up to me on a regular basis going, I don't know why I'm crying. That's not where you want to be. You can't have your emotion be where you don't even understand where you are anymore, okay? But that's what happens over years and years of not having a strong enough mind to help balance that emotion, okay? So for the emotional, we're talking about boundaries. So what do I mean by boundaries? 2 directions, okay? Make sure you have boundaries that others cannot cross, okay? I'm not just talking physically. This is head. This is not physical. This is emotionally, okay? People that you say, no, I'm sorry, but you can't talk to me that way. And that's a lot of times family members. Some of you have problems with mom or dad, whoever, and they talk to you a certain way. You're like, you don't have boundaries. You don't stop that from happening, okay? Or you let your friends talk to you a certain way. Make sure you have boundaries. The other side of it is make sure that you have boundaries in terms of recognizing certain places you don't need to be stepping into. That is probably the biggest problem that I deal with in this body is you guys have a hard time knowing what's not your business. By not your business, I mean not for you to get involved with. Not that you shouldn't know about it. You might hear something that you shouldn't know or whatever. It's just sometimes things people talk about, whatever. But you got to understand where you are overstepping that's not yours to be involved in. I got all kinds of friends fighting with each other, people that were living together, roommate type things, because they didn't have an understanding of boundaries. One wasn't setting them, the other wasn't respecting them. Okay? And it gets to be a real problem. And part of boundaries is all of you, please listen, because as a community, we have this problem on a regular basis. I love you, and I appreciate your heart to help. You've heard me say this a lot. It's not helpful unless the other person thinks it's helpful, which means you should never do anything you think is helpful without asking the person if it's helpful. Because a lot of you mess a lot of stuff up thinking you're being helpful on a regular basis. And then I got department heads coming to me going, and I'm like, you know, they were just trying to help. Ugh. Okay? And then things aren't in the right place and they weren't put the right way or something's whatever, and that's not helpful. Okay? If you want to be helpful, ask. Hey, I thought I was going to just do this. Would that be helpful? Ask. Don't just do. Okay? I promise you, with me especially, that won't work. All right? Don't just do. Ask. Because most of the time, the answer is going to probably be no, I'm okay, I got it, I don't need anything. Because if I want something, most people, if I need something, I'll ask somebody to do it. I'll do it myself or I'll ask. So you almost never need to ask me if I need anything. If I need something, I'll go ask somebody. Okay? But if you have an idea, think it might be helpful, you ask. That's fine. I don't mind if you ask. I might just say, no, I got it. It's okay, right? So don't just assume that you think something's a good idea and then go and do it. Because that at some point, will mess up whoever it is you're supposed to be underneath as far as a department head or someone who's supervising something. Because at some point, it'll be great. At another point, it won't be great. Okay? But it's a lesson that needs to be learned. Okay? To understand your lane and stay in your lane. Now, if you want to step outside your lane, fine. Ask. It's all simple. Elder, wouldn't that help with all the things that are going on? Because you're over the whole serving departments and everything. I mean, we get it. Your heart's right. You want to help. Problem is you're too blue sometimes. And the way you see it isn't the way the department head sees it. But your way is what you want to do, and so you do it. And then it's not necessarily the thing that we need, and it actually causes a problem sometimes. Okay? So just be careful with that. All right? So, and the last thing, of course, for emotional, so I said develop balance, boundaries, and somehow learn how to have shalom. You're going to have to find peace. Go maybe listen to Peace in the World, Not His. My daughter's been talking to me about some ideas about doing another teaching on peace from another angle. Okay, but we have a problem having peace. And so I want to encourage you to do that, okay? So it's really important that we get those things developed. So this is the other thing I was going to say about both of these things. You've heard me say this in the past, maybe it's been a while. If you don't know what to do, look up the resources available. Figure out what mental struggles or emotional struggles you're having. Financial struggles. There are lots of books and teachers out there, right? Wellness, as far as your health. There's lots of gurus out there for that you can listen to that have good information. I listen to stuff on that all the time. Okay? This is what you've heard me say all the time, become an expert at your problem. Okay? I don't mean become very good at your problem. I mean become an expert at that issue so that you can figure out the answers. All right? So if you have a problem with anger, go become an expert on anger and how to handle anger and how to fix the problem. You got a problem in your health, go become an expert at that health issue. Learn everything that's available on solutions to that problem so you can understand it. Okay? If you have a problem with anxiety, learn about it. Figure it out. What do people do to fix that? How do they handle it, right? Depression, whatever it is, become an expert. You have now today, beyond any other time that has ever existed, this is an easy thing to say, access to all of this. And mostly free. All right? Okay, I was a kid who never liked to read because I had to sit still to read. And so I didn't like things like libraries. But I love to be able to just go on Google and look something up and get a quick answer or get a resource I can go to real quick. Even if I'm not going to read it right now or watch the video right now, it'll tell me, hey, there's a teaching on YouTube that covers that, or here's a book that covers that, or whatever. Mostly if you go to YouTube, almost anything's going to be in a video that you could possibly think about. Become an expert at whatever your mental or emotional challenge, or any of these 7 areas, whatever your challenge is. Now, the first one, hopefully I'm part of that, right? I'm helping you with the spiritual side, okay? But the other ones, go find experts at your particular thing to figure out how do you, not so much how do you, what solutions are out there that you might be able to try to handle your problem. Because not all solutions work for everybody. So go try some and see how it works for you, right? Okay? So that's the rest of this Omer account, right? We're doing financial this week, then mental, emotional, relational, and then community. So it's going from you to you and, okay, to you and everybody else. Okay, so we're expanding from just you and working our way to the bigger community. All right? And hopefully that exercise will give you something to change your life, not just give you something to do for 50 days. Because I think you need to be looking at this as life-changing, not just something to do. I mean, I could have given you anything to do for 50 days. I want to change your life, that you have a greater level of well-being in all those areas. I mean, that'd be my hope and my desire, okay, at least to launch you in the right direction. I mean, I'm not the answer to all of these areas, but I can inspire you to go get it, give you some ideas. All right? Amen? All right, Father, we want to come before you. And Father, we are so excited about having a turning of the page, this Rosh Chodesh for Iyar. Okay, Father, we are looking forward to yet another opportunity to grow and transform and become more like you and Yeshua. So, Father, I appreciate that you inspired me to give them the Omer Count Challenge to transform these 7 areas of their lives and to use this time just like Israel did, leaving Egypt and being transformed into a nation when they got to Sinai. So, Father, we want to thank you. We want to praise you. We want to give you all glory and honor as we come before you and ask all these things in the name above all names, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. Amen. All right, I'll come over here for the wave goodbye Rosh Chodesh thing. So if anybody wants to come on camera, you can come on this side of the room. We got Ali here who's got the camera. All right, here they come. All right. All right, so we're going to look at this camera over here, and we're going to kind of, reach out and wave at and all that kind of stuff and acknowledge that we have our family, that's extended family, that's out there online watching with us today. We want to wish them all a Rosh Chodesh Sameach, a Shavua Tov, which is a good rest of the week, and tell them that we love them. Okay? Rosh Chodesh Sameach, Shavua Tov. I know I changed it on you. You guys get lost already. Rosh Chodesh Sameach, Shavua Tov, and love you. Okay, here we go. On three. 1, 2, 3.